Welcome to FUNC YOU UP, the podcast that gives you the best of functional medicine, nutrition, and wellness in 8 minutes or less.
Welcome back to FUNC YOU UP. This is Michelle Miller, clinical nutritionist.
And this is Diana Orchant, functional medicine registered dietitian-to.
So on this episode, the special episode at home with Michelle and Diana, this is part 2 of our series covering the COVID-19 virus, how to protect yourself, how to empower your own health. But now I think we're going to transition a little bit to talk about how do we maintain our sanity, physical, chemical, spiritual, emotional, as we go through the coming weeks, potentially months.
Absolutely. There's so much to be said about your health right now, and mental health plays a huge role in it and shouldn't be underestimated.
When you think about isolation and being quarantined, we know from studying with functional medicine that community has a lot to do with someone's health, especially as we age. That's why there's so many studies around elder care communities, because we know living by yourself is not good for your mental and physical health. So take me through some of the ways that you're trying to stay connected and kind of avoid this sense of isolation during this time when you're really not supposed to be around people.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing for me is knowing that this is going on not only nationally but globally. So no one is alone. Everybody, it's always surprising when people can kind of say people on the news are crying. This is just a global pandemic, and so everyone's going through this. And so just knowing that is kind of helpful in a way.
You're not alone.
Yeah, you're not alone going through this. You might feel in a lot of other situations, and then also Zoom chatting, like we're doing right now.
Yeah.
Right? You can get so many people on a Zoom chat and checking up on people and people checking in on you, and you can just actually, you get that face-to-face connection, which is super important. And while phone calls are great, Zoom calls are really nice because you get to see the people.
Absolutely. And I think this is the opportunity to sit back and think, who are the people that I wish I had more time to connect with, that I wish I did call more often. This is your opportunity. I always think the more ways you can stimulate the senses, the better. So I think on a phone call, that's great. But if you can see and hear someone, even better. I love the idea of working out with a Zoom call with a friend, doing the same workout at home, but you can kind of both see each other and laugh, and it's motivating too. It's a sense of accountability. So I think there's a lot of great technology out there right now. And I think we're lucky to be going through this pandemic at a time where we have so many sources and resources to connect.
Yeah. And, everybody is, as I was saying earlier, cooking more. And so I've had a lot of fun, cooking while doing Zoom calls or having dinner with friends and clinking our glasses.
I love that. Good cheers, right? Virtual cheers.
And so
I like that.
You take daily life now and you get to share it with others. So there's something special about that.
I heard a friend who was figured out a virtual Scrabble, so that there was 3, family members that were in different places and they were playing together, but they could also see each other on a Zoom call, which was cool. I think a lot of church services are being, recorded. I think there is still a way for you to feel your own community, however you connected with others in the past. I have friends that are doing book clubs virtually. We can still stay connected. And I think knowing this is temporary, we don't know exactly how many days or how many weeks or even how many months, but we know this is going to come to an end. That hasn't been a scenario yet, but this is never going to be over. So I think that is the beauty, is that someday we will be looking back to this time, and why not try to pull through some new healthy habits so that you can go through and say, I didn't spend that time and waste it. I didn't use it as an excuse to Netflix and be lazy. I used it as a time to enhance my life and enrich things. Right. Now, we always talk about kind of the different pillars of health. But Diana, I like when you talk about just the circadian rhythms and how that really sets you up for success each day.
Yeah, so I think it's really important, especially when we're staying indoors so much, to make sure that we're getting that sunlight into our eyes. So, I've heard you say to clients and I've said to my friends, it's really important just to get outside every day at some point, or if you can't, sitting by a window. So I have a more personal story of that. I haven't left my apartment now in I think 8 days, because I was afraid that I had the virus, and I'm very much in the epicenter in New York City. And so I do plan to leave here, but I don't want to bring it with me. So, as I tell people, get outside every day. I think it's super important if you can. Some people can't, right? So some people have the virus and they're stuck inside for at least 14 days, and that's really difficult. So one thing that you can do is sit by a window, open the window. The weather's really nice, especially right now.
Take a deep breath of that fresh air.
Whether you're in this very packed city and the air might not be as fresh, it's okay. It's still fresh air. So I think that's really important, as well as going to bed at a decent hour, because we can all get stuck watching Netflix.
Yes, I think being really strict with your sleep time and your wake time. I like the idea of eating around the time that the sun is setting. And I like the idea of making sure that you are definitely in bed and asleep before midnight if possible. We can talk about some things we can use to help get to sleep if there's some anxiety or stress that's preventing that. But then also just getting a good night's sleep and waking up in the morning, getting that good sunlight into your eyes, getting that like real blue light into your eyes to help wake you up, and also maybe doing some morning activity, physical activity, to kind of get the circulation and the heart rate going.
Yeah, so if you can go for a run outside, even a nice little walk, or I think pretty much virtually every single workout studio has figured out a way to get a class online.
Yes.
So that's really good for setting a routine and feeling like you're doing some sort of activity, especially if you're sitting most of your day, which I think is pretty much unavoidable, especially in places like New York City where you don't have much room to walk around. So that's a really good way to make sure you're getting some activity too.
Yeah, I think especially in New York, we're all used to walking around and getting our steps in, and you have to work hard to get 5,000 steps in a New York apartment. So I would actually try to suggest doing something like twice a day, like waking up and doing some sort of activity, and then maybe going for a walk later, going for a run, or just doing another activity at home. I wanted to also talk about like mental exercises. I think of like exercise and meditation, things like that, as exercise for your brain. Or nutrition for your brain, if you will. So I did want to talk about during this time, kind of like protecting your mental health a little bit, and making sure you had a practice to maybe put up some boundaries around social media, or around how often you're watching the news. I think it's one thing to stay connected. It's another thing to like be obsessive about it and let that create more of a fear state. And I think right now, in terms of trying to be our healthiest self, you can't stay in that fear state. So what are maybe some different practices you would recommend for our audience?
I think it very much depends on the individual, but one that I've found to be really helpful is meditation. So there's so many apps out there, whether it's Headspace, Calm. I personally just have a mantra that I learned through transcendental meditation years ago. And so I find that to be the best thing for me, is just sitting and saying my mantra over and over again. You can also create a mantra, whatever that might be, something that gets you through this, whether it be one word or a phrase, but really sitting for at least 10 minutes, ideally 20, or at least sporadic throughout the day. Some people find like 1-minute meditations are helpful when they get really anxious, sitting there for a minute and collecting themselves. But I think now we all have a little bit more time on our hands. So if we can develop that practice, not only will it get us through this tough time, but carry on through life when things get really busy and hectic again.
I agree. Like right now is the time to create a habit so that it sticks with you, and you just can't imagine going your day. It's like brushing your teeth. Like you can't imagine waking up and not brushing your teeth. It's the same idea. If you do it long enough, it just doesn't feel right if you don't do it. I love gratitude journals. That's a great way to connect. Doing breath work, if you want to YouTube that or look into that. I know our office has been working with a lot of Sage, who's amazing at leading breath work sessions. And just, if you have a devotional, if you have a spiritual practice, it's really more about trying to get out of the scarcity and the fear-based part of your body, and getting more to the higher self, and just trying to stay above the such situation mentally and emotionally and spiritually. What about just like routines, and like now our life is different? Like how should we think about the day ahead, and kind of like I worry that a lot of people are like, it's like Groundhog's Day, and I don't want it to turn into that.
Doing the same thing every day. And that's,
Yeah.
so I think, at least for me, I found setting a routine, knowing kind of what my day is going to look like, that I'm working from these hours to these hours, signing off at a certain time and being with family or using that time to do Zoom calls, but really setting a schedule. So waking up at a similar time every day, going to bed at a similar time every day, knowing that when you wake up, you have something to do and you need to get started, whether that be work that you set for yourself or your actual job. But really just making sure that you kind of have some sort of routine, because it's different. You're no longer commuting. You no longer have the stress of, well, you have plenty of other stresses, but you don't have like the stress of getting somewhere or the subway or different things that we used to find stressful. Now we're like, yeah, I kind of miss it. But just making sure that you're creating space, but also setting some time aside for yourself too.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, we could have kids home, still have work demands. They're definitely, the stresses have shifted, but I think it is a time to get creative and to think about, okay, what will the new routine need to be right now? And how can that best serve my current situation, my current needs? Anything else you wanted to add? I feel like we touched on a lot of good things like movement, sleep, getting fresh air, getting to bed, kind of waking up each day feeling your best.
I think just, this is a very anxiety provoking time. You can't deny that. And while it's so important to stay on top of like what's actually going on in the world, sometimes we can all get a little bit too obsessed. And so I know people are anxious, it's keeping them up at night. So as much as, having a gratitude journal and meditation and having routine, all these things are really going to help. But sometimes I found a lot of different supplements have helped me just stay calm, because it kind of goes like this, some weeks are better than others, some days are better than others. So
yeah.
I've been taking a lot of L-theanine, which just calms like the racing thoughts. I love it because it doesn't feel like anything, and everyone that takes it feels that way. You can't tell that you've taken it, except that your mind stops racing.
Yeah, I love that. I'm a big fan of like hemp oil complex. I love the standard process hemp oil complex. Some people prefer CBD. I like the blend of the full hemp. But yeah, I mean, I think magnesium, it could be really calming, a lot of minerals, theanine can be great. L-theanine I love. But yeah, I think it is, not being afraid to turn to some of those nutraceuticals if you need to use them. And just know that, again, this is temporary and it's just like a day by day. And how do I create space and create an environment externally and internally that's going to allow me to be my highest and best self.
Right. And then just always finding someone to talk to. A lot of therapists are going online.
Great idea.
Friends, family, everybody kind of has ebbs and flows, but everyone's really there for each other. And I've found that so much throughout this. So
I love that. That's great. Well, thank you so much for joining us on this part 2 special episode of Funk You Up, and we hope to catch you soon. Feel free to reach out with questions, suggestions, or comments on how you are staying connected and staying well during this time. You can reach us at
FUNCYouUp@physiologicnyc.com. We'd love to hear from you.
We'll see you soon. Thank you.
Bye.
You've been listening to Funk You Up. Be sure to like, review, and subscribe for more daily tips on living well.